As I mentioned in my trailer review, I knew exactly what to expect from the movie, and yet I couldn't imagine the emotional intensity and the shock value it is going to put me through. Now, going to my experience, that is exactly what it did. The rage of Sandeep Reddy Vanga in Ranbir's avatar is what you'll witness throughout. And this movie is not anything that is measured or normal. Everything here is extreme and intense. Love for his father, which is essentially the whole movie, for his sister, which is not fully established in any promotional material. And this is what will start showcasing the extremity and the audacity with which things will be dealt in this movie. For his wife, which you've seen in the songs, and you'll see that relationship go through the full cycle throughout the movie. And also for estranged cousins, with whom there is funny banter, and most importantly, a need to build a bond for fighting for each other. This movie surprisingly also has some humor that is intense, without any of the characters trying to be funny. The action sequences which you got a glimpse in the pre-teaser, teaser and the trailer was even more extreme and accelerating that you had never ever seen in Hindi cinema. You can't unsee what you have seen. You can't unexperience what you have experienced, because this will stay with you for some time for what it put you through. It's like jumping out of a plane and doing a skydive. This is stylish and little more sophisticated mass hero for you. I'll have to make a differentiation of this movie in two halves. Not because there is an interval, purely because the director chose to have a completely different pace and emotions explored in the first half narrative and the second half narrative. Much of my amazing experience is coming from the first half, which is what I'm carrying home, as almost the second half didn't even exist. As one of my friends said it out loudly, that this is not the end of the film and there is more cinema to come. And I'd say not because it was boring, purely because there seems to be an emotional fulfillment by the interval itself. Normally in mass commercial cinema, you'll have such a detailed fight planned for the climax to make you go bonkers, and also to give you that emotional fulfillment or closure. But here you're getting that by the interval itself. The second half happened in the shadows of this emotional hangover. As I watched it in that hangover, even as everything came to a standstill from a certain emotion standpoint, a completely different emotion, which is the marriage between the leads, was being explored and tested. This goes on till another important character is introduced, who's the main villain. And that is when it'll strike that it took so long, because we are now revisiting the emotion of the pre-interval, and that transition is not smooth, despite it not being sudden. And it might still have been great if it matched the acceleration that we had in the first half, but alas, it could not stand up to its own self. Now coming to the music is such a huge plus, as some of the acceleration is generated by the music matching the rage on the screen. And all the songs never felt out of place or a speed breaker in the movie. I don't think this movie would have the same impact if not without this music. Now coming to the writing, editing and direction, essentially all about Sandeep Reddy Vanga. I'll have to say, Sandeep Reddy Vanga, you beauty. There are many scenes that you could not even imagine, and the sheer audacity to conceive it, write it and execute it is what makes Sandeep Reddy stand out as a director. Despite having only made 2 films, but technically just one story and one film, this guy is going to be there for a long time. His brand of cinema is going to have a loyal fan base because of the audacity of his imagination and not tempering it when translating it to the screen. The sister love that I mentioned before, I would say no one could have conceived it except for this guy. And then the pre-interval lead up to the action, and the action itself, the only close comparison of the interval high I would say is with Rajamouli's Chhatrapati. Also, the narration in the first half isn't linear. His editing ensured that throughout the first half, we as an audience experience awe every now and then, to ensure the emotional intensity was only going up and up until it hit the ceiling, maxing out with the closure or fulfillment with the interval fight. He succeeded in his writing, editing, direction here. The comparison with Rajamouli and Chhatrapati doesn't end with the interval high. Sadly, just as Chhatrapati's second half couldn't live up, as explained, I'll have to say Sandeep Reddy Vanga fell short, not because he suddenly lost his ability of imagination, but simply because he didn't have enough story to tell, which also limited his editing skills thereby. The second half was completely linear, nothing special. I think the second half is a problem on paper itself, and so everything that followed couldn't make it up for it. If I were the editor, I would have edited it completely differently to remove almost 30-40 minutes of the movie, making it like a 2 hour 30 minute or a 40 minute movie with a different interval and the climax unlike it is in this movie. All of that is in my imagination, and I can possibly share that in my detailed breakdown of the movie later. Now coming to the actors. Anil Kapoor was amazing in his role, and he showcased the character's limitations and vulnerabilities as a father, but still justifying it for himself and other characters in the film as a shield so that he could not blame himself for how his son turned out to be. Rashmika definitely had amazing screen presence and great emotional value in the film. She played a very mature role. She was able to stand up to her co-star. You can also feel her emotional trauma of being in a toxic relationship. The impact of Bobby Deol in the trailer actually didn't translate within the movie. The impact was completely subdued. Even as his performance was really good as a mute, I don't think this is a spoiler. His characterization was extreme, and he did scary things that may put people off, especially what he did to the new bride, which may be taken as offensive for most women watching this movie. The biggest dampener though is the conflict between him and Ranbir that didn't meet up to the build-up. It felt very short. He could have been introduced in the first half itself. Anyway, his characterization might actually be the most controversial in this movie. Ranbir Kapoor showed his Nata Vishwarupam, playing a very complex character. You can certainly feel his rage and pain, mostly driven by his ego and a chip on his shoulder to somehow get his father's attention and love. The action episodes were simply amazing, especially the pre-interval episode. It is going to be etched in history. He also played different ages in the film, showcasing his range as an actor, and he clearly overcame whatever inhibitions, as his character is a very flawed one and never ever showcased as part of mainstream Hindi cinema hero. His college scene with his sister is one for ages. I'm not sure if anyone can upstage that. His performances many scenes are absolutely his best. He also had some physical transformation, but obviously using prosthetics, and his performance in those episodes were also a good standout. Despite being a flawed character, you'll see him as a man of principles, and his word actually means something. Until a certain incident in the film, you will see him not keeping his word, which actually diminishes his character. And this is not a problem with Ranbir, mostly a problem with writing. All that I have to say is, Ranbir, what a performer. Now coming to the conclusion, the first half of the film is not even a conversation. It's one of the best mass hero movies that will make you think, if this is such a cult classic in hero characterization for a long time, everyone would have gone bonkers. The second half is almost a different movie for reasons I've highlighted earlier. You'll either love or trash this movie. If you're satisfied with the high of the first half, you'll be much more forgiving because you've already got what you came for. If you're satisfied but still looking for more, which is legitimate, that is why you have the second half in the film, then you're going to be put off so much that it can make you feel cheated for what could have been a much greater film that could have been at par with RRR, Jawan or KGF in the category of mass commercial cinema. I'm of the first category because I was already satisfied. I'm writing this review after having slept through and many hours after watching the film, and I'm still carrying that first half experience and that high that I experienced. This is not a movie to ignore. It deserves a watch just for the first half. And if you don't want that feeling to be diluted or corrupted, just walk out of the film as you would have got your worth. Consider it like an English film that is only of 1 hour 50 minutes or 55 minutes length. If you like the review, show your love by liking the video. Spread the love by sharing it with your friends, family, and bless us by subscribing to the channel so that we can keep meeting often. Thank you.